Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you like this watch, you can see it and purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing the discontinued and much missed Patek Philippe Nautilus Chronograph 5980 1A-001, no longer made in stainless steel. This was a model that bowed at Basel World 2006, and the model on my wrist was discontinued by mid-2009. And we'll discuss why that is in a moment. But it has the standard stance of the 5980, 40.5 millimeters in diameter if you measure it from roughly 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. If you measure it conventionally from wingtip to wingtip, it's a more substantial 44 millimeters, so it does have impressive volume on the wrist. It's not excessively thick, however. A very manageable 12.4 millimeters thick. That's competitive with the likes of a Rolex Daytona. In spite of the squat case form, it is a slim timepiece. Lug to lug, a couple of ways to measure this watch, but I find that the definitive one is the rigid outermost outcroppings of these intermediate links. You can't pull them straight down, and they flare out effectively as rigid portions of the case. So measured across the wrist from outer link to outer link, the watch is a manageable 51.4, bigger than you'd expect, but still very viable on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. The timepiece has a very supple, comfortable, silken, and high-grade bracelet, and this one's actually a little bit better than what you'll find on contemporary 2018 Patek Philippe, and let me show you why. Because back then, they did it right. They used screws to remove individual links. So screw-fixed links rather than pin sleeves. Everything else has been consistent. It's always been a very comfortable, slim, tapered, and gorgeously finished bracelet. You can see everything that is satin, everything that is polished, those perfectly aligned hairline bevels across the flanks of the links, as well as a taper that you can see easily, but tolerances that are so tight you can't feel the individual step down from link to link. That's how good it is. Vents the wrist just enough channeling between the links on the underside to let heat, moisture, sweat, grit escape, as well as avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. This is not a dive clasp, and thus it has a much lower profile when clipped down and locked with its clamshell, but you will note that its underside is curved to match the arc of the wrist for comfort. Let's get close, give ourselves a bit more light, get everything into focus, and now we talk about the case. The case construction is like most modern Nautilus models, which is to say there are a couple of distinct parts. It's no longer a monoblock, but it's still as beautifully made as ever. The finishing, the bevels, the satin, the finish, the symmetry from side to side, the perfect rounding of the edges of the semi-geometric form of the bezel. Everything that Genta intended is present and correct here. The one distinction is that it's a little bit thicker, and of course there's a pusher adjuster on the flank, a relic of this caliber's origin as an annual calendar chronograph in the 5960. That little pusher on the flank changes the date. Let's take my grimy finger grease off of this watch because it deserves better, and talk about the dial. The dial is a gradient, so you have a darker blue at the edge, almost black, and at center a sort of silver blue, as light as it gets. There's also a horizontal striation. That's been with the Nautilus since the first one in 1976. I spoke of the Nautilus as Genta intended, and indeed Gerald Genta did pen both the blue dial and the striations to give it definition and strength. What he could not have imagined is this mono counter that lives at 6 o'clock. It features coaxial registers for both chronograph hours and minutes, and you will note that when you stop the chronograph on this watch, there's nothing going on, so it's a very static dial. A vertical clutch system in the chronograph lets you run the chronograph continuously with no wear and tear, and it also allows the chronograph seconds hand to start and stop without any stagger or jump, so that's an advantage of the vertical clutch system. Black on white date disc, there's a quick set function for the date, and there's also a flyback function for the chronograph. So you might not know this because Patek doesn't really advertise it well, but the 5960s and the 5980s are all flyback chronographs, reset and restart by pressing the trigger at 4 with no hazard to the movement. White gold appliques with super luminova and white gold baton hands at center. There will be a lume shot at the end. Calibration is white on blue for high contrast, and you will notice flashes of color, silver, blue, and red at 6 o'clock. It's a colorful and cheerful dial. Although I think that the way to really win smiles and good cheer is the movement. This is arguably the highlight of the watch because the design is Nautilus, and Patek worked very hard to integrate the imagery of the chronograph into the dial, minimizing the registers with the mono counter, minimizing the appearance of the chronograph triggers along the winglets of the Nautilus case. But it's the case back where this one really sets itself apart. You see a movement that is Patek Philippe's first in-house automatic winding chronograph. So launched in 2006, you can see it features the Geneva hallmark. This was phased out after mid-2009, so you already know that this watch not only pre-2012, because 2012 was the year pin sleeves replaced screws in the bracelet, but also pre-2009, or at least pre-July 2009, because it still features the Geneva hallmark. Another period feature that you no longer get is the old hand-formed ferrous or metal Breguet overcoil hairspring. The old metal overcoil is used here along with a Geneva stud style cap on the Gyromax free sprung balance. So free sprung regulation, Gyromax allows the watch to be precisely adjusted in 5 positions with respect to gravity to keep superb time and also hold that regulation in the face of bumps, disruptions, and vibrations on the wrist. That's the advantage of Patek's now 60-plus-year-old Gyromax free sprung system. Rotor at center, unidirectional winding with ceramic rotor bearings for long life and efficiency, 45 to 55 hour power reserve with this movement. It is a vertical clutch column wheel chronograph, as we discussed, and you can see the elements of the levers and horns, and I'm going to do my best to show you, but you can see them in the upper corner. Let me try to find the chronograph pushers. And they cycle as you cycle the chronograph functions. The column wheel, a traditional, crisp, and somewhat more expensive and challenging to tune system than a modern cam or shuttle chronograph, but Patek not pinching pennies here. You will note that there's a panoply of finishing, all of it gorgeous. Côte de Genève, circular across bridges as well as the winding mass. There's a micro perlage in spiral application at the center of the winding mass and a larger perlage across the base plate underneath the balance. All screw heads are black polished, and though I struggle to show it at this angle with respect to the camera, there is a mirrored anglage on the edge of every bridge as well as within every jewel and screw countersink. Screw heads are both slotted so that their slots are chamfered and they are black polished on their heads. Those are the proverbial 25 to 30 Swiss franc screws. Gorgeous, functional, water resistant to 100 meters, and fully loomed. This is a full-service Sportster, built the way Patek used to build them. If you want the screws in the bracelet and the Geneva hallmark on the movement, and you want yours in steel, this is the only way to fly. See it on the watch box. And we're back with the Patek Philippe Nautilus Chronograph, beating away at 28,800 vibrations per hour in the dark. Plenty of lume, you'll know the time. One feature I should have mentioned is the quick set for the date. It does not feature hacking seconds, but on the other hand, since you're going to be using the chronograph seconds hand as your seconds hand in effect, you may as well just reset with the flyback when the time comes. Effectively hackable. See it on the watch box.